everyone to make their way up to the meeting room. Oh, just in time, lovely. Thank you very much for taking time out of your very busy days to be with us and then of course be with your children over in the classroom. We host a meeting like this every year to talk about the PYPX or the exhibition. For some of you, you are nodding knowingly because you've had children go through this experience before. Others of you, it will be brand new, and so we wanted to help you to understand what the exhibition is and then what the exhibition looks like under Studio 5. So just to start off, the exhibition is, as the PYP, the Primary Years Program prescribes it, is a culmination of a child's primary journey. So whether they have just started in the Primary Years Program or whether they've been doing it since they were 2 years old, it doesn't matter. It's about how far they have come as a learner in their primary schooling. So that's what the idea is. It is to give them an opportunity to culminate and to celebrate that journey as a primary school student. Our one might look a little bit different to how other schools would do it. Our meeting today is to talk about self-directed student planned units and how they will merge into the exhibition in Studio 5. To give you an idea about what this might look like in other schools and what it has looked like at this school a few years ago, we traditionally would have 6 units in a year, and one of those units would be the exhibition. There are many, many schools still do it exactly this way, and there's nothing wrong with that, that's fine. At Ishmael, we started a few years ago changing things so that we would have an extended period of time for the students to focus on the journey and focus on that celebration of them coming to the end of their primary schooling. So we started our PYPX earlier in the year, and so we could give that time, we give the students time to make mistakes, fix the mistakes, and really get an authentic process out of it. None of you will be surprised that Studio 5 wanted to change it up this year, and so how we've organised it is we've done a Who We Are unit, we've done How the World Works unit, so pretty traditionally, as traditionally as Studio 5 can, and the rest of our year is student planned units that will merge into PYPX. So we will not be stopping to start something different. It will continue on based on whatever the students have planned for themselves. Some of them might be at the situation where they're happy now, they're motivated now with what they're doing, and that same idea will carry through all the way. Some of them may change, and that's okay. Ms. Tarrant is going to take over for a bit.
So a big part of who we are at Ishmael is always starting with the why. What we do as teachers, what we do as a school, how we encourage our students is always to think about the why first. So we thought it would be helpful to start with why for all of you. Why are we having student planned units, and why is that leading into PYPX? So when Studio 5 was being planned, we came up with a mission statement, and as you can see, it's about how a culture of self-directed learning is a catalyst for success. So that mission statement is something that we always come back to inform what we do and how we do it, to make sure that we're staying true to our mission and what we believe is best for students for an unknown future in a rapidly changing world. That mission statement has changed the way we have thought about units of inquiry. A lot of units of inquiry in traditional PYP schools are teacher planned. So we've been kind of questioning ourselves about where's the role of the student and the student voice and student interest and curiosity in that process. So we have decided to support students in planning their own units. So we've come up with an overarching central idea: success hinges on motivation. And for the remainder of the year, we're helping students unpack and understand the concept of success, academic success, personal success, emotional success, social success, and then also more deeply understand motivation. What motivates them? What doesn't motivate them? How does motivation ebb and flow? And then most importantly, the relationship between personal motivation and the success that one can achieve. A lot of our thinking and research comes from Dan Pink. He is very known in the business world with motivation in companies and organizations, and we use a lot of his theory and his research. We're very transparent. We share it with the students, and we'd like to share just a short clip today with you and the 3 kind of secret ingredients of motivation as Dan Pink sees them and the role that they play in organizations, and then we'll talk about how that translates into Studio 5.
Is a motivator is to pay people enough to take the issue of money off the table. Pay people enough so that they're not thinking about money and they're thinking about the work. Now, once you do that, it turns out there are 3 factors that the science shows lead to better performance. Not to mention personal satisfaction. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is our desire to be self-directed, to direct our own lives. Now, in many ways, traditional notions of management run afoul of that. And management is great if you want compliance. But if you want engagement, which is what we want in the workforce today as people are doing more complicated, sophisticated things, self-direction is better. Let me give you some examples of this, of almost radical forms of self-direction in the workplace that lead to good results. Let's start with this company right here, Atlassian, an Australian company. It's a software company, and they do something really cool. Once a quarter, on a Thursday afternoon, they say to their developers, for the next 24 hours, you can work on anything you want. You can work on it the way you want. You can work on it with whomever you want. All we ask is that you show the results to the company at the end of those 24 hours in this fun kind of meeting, not a star chamber session, but this fun meeting with beer and cake and fun and other things like that. It turns out that that one day of pure, undiluted autonomy has led to a whole array of fixes for existing software, a whole array of ideas for new products that otherwise had never emerged. One day. Now, this is not an if-then incentive. This is not the sort of thing that I would have done 3 years ago before I knew this research. I would have said, you want people to be creative and innovative? Give them a freaking innovation bonus. If you can do something cool, I'll give you $2,500. They're not doing this at all. They're essentially saying, you probably want to do something interesting. Let me just get out of your way. One day of autonomy produces things that had never emerged. Now, let's talk about mastery. Mastery is our urge to get better at stuff. We like to get better at stuff. This is why people play musical instruments on the weekend. You got all these people who are acting in ways that seem irrational economically. They play musical instruments on weekends. Why? It's not going to get them a mate. It's not going to make them any money. Why are they doing it? Because it's fun, because you get better at it, and that's satisfying. Go back in time a little bit. I imagine this if I went to my first economics professor, a woman named Mary Alice Schulman, and I went to her in 1983 and said, Professor Schulman, can I talk to you after class for a moment? Yeah. I got this inkling. I got this idea for a business model. I just want to run it past you. Here's how it would work. You get a bunch of people around the world who are doing highly skilled work, but they're willing to do it for free and volunteer their time, 20, sometimes 30 hours a week. Okay, she's looking at you somewhat skeptically there. Oh, but I'm not done. And then what they create, they give it away rather than sell it. It's going to be huge. I mean, she truly would have thought I was insane. Okay, it seemed to fly in the face of so many things. But what do you have? You have Linux powering 1 out of 4 corporate servers in Fortune 500 companies, Apache powering more than the majority of web servers, Wikipedia. What's going on? Why are people doing this? Why are these people, many of whom are technically sophisticated, highly skilled people who have jobs? Okay, they have jobs. They're working at jobs for pay, doing sophisticated technological work, and yet, during their limited discretionary time, they do equally, if not more, technically sophisticated work, not for their employer, but for someone else for free. That's a strange economic behavior. Economists who looked into it, why are they doing this? It's overwhelmingly clear. Challenge and mastery, along with making a contribution. That's it. What you see more and more is a rise of what you might call the purpose motive. Is that more and more organizations want to have some kind of transcendent purpose. Partly because it makes coming to work better, partly because that's the way to get better talent. And what we're seeing now is, in some ways, when the profit motive becomes unmoored from the purpose motive, bad things happen. Bad things ethically sometimes, but also bad things just like not good stuff, like crappy products, like lame services, like uninspiring places to work. That when the profit motive is paramount, or when it becomes completely unhitched from the purpose motive, it just, people don't do great things. More and more organizations are realizing this and sort of disturbing the categories between what's profit and what's purpose. And I think that actually heralds something interesting. And I think that the companies, organizations that are flourishing, whether they're profit, for-profit, or somewhere in between, are animated by this purpose model. Let me give you a couple of examples. Here's the founder of Skype. He says, our goal is to be disruptive, but in the cause of making the world a better place. Pretty good purpose. Here's Steve Jobs. I want to put a ding in the universe. All right? That's the kind of thing that might get you up in the morning and racing to go to work. So I think that, that we are purpose maximizers, not only profit maximizers. I think the science shows that we care about mastery very, very deeply. And the science shows that we want to be self-directed. And I think that the big takeaway here is that if we start treating people like people and not assuming that they're simply horses, slower, smaller, better smelling horses, if we get past this kind of ideology of carrots and sticks and look at the science, I think we can actually build organizations and work lives that make us better off, but I also think they have the promise to make our world just a little bit better.
So that science is very much applied to the business world, but that research and science is very much central to what we've been doing in Studio 5 and what your children have been doing to plan their own units that are driven by purpose, autonomy, and mastery. So now we're going to show you how those 3 secret ingredients, how we've used them to help students plan their own units and direct their own learning. Momentarily.
Okay, so the whole way that we are approaching this is through a process. Obviously, your children, are not working at software companies, they're not adults, they're not able to do all of these things independently yet. So it's not like we're just saying, here, have some time and go for it, do whatever, and we'll be over here if you need us. It's not how we're doing it. You will have seen come home a sheet that looks something like that up in the top right-hand corner. That was to get your perspective on what motivates your child, what your child finds interesting, and your child did the exact same sheet at school. So this was like a brainstorming process to try and see what drives them. It wasn't supposed to be things that they had to think about too hard, more of like answering sort of from their heart, from their gut. What was it that drove them? What interests them? Then once we've had the time to brainstorm, and for some people it was instantaneous, it's like, I know that this is what I want to do. And for other people, a few weeks down the track, they're still experimenting with different ideas because they're just not too sure. But once they have that idea that they think they want to take further, they would conference with the teacher and do something that looks along these lines. A pretty in-depth planner. We ask them a lot of questions, we ask them to justify their choices, and we ask them to think about the learning that is going to happen and the skills that they're going to develop in doing whatever it is that they've chosen to do. And then, once they've got our seal of approval, if you will, then action. Just so that we're all on the same page about what action is. It is not a specific thing. A change in thinking and or, man, I should have edited this, I'm as bad as my students. Gosh, sorry. A change in thinking and or read action as behavior in yourself and or others as a result of your learning. So a change in thinking, you might have thought one way and then you've experienced something and it's making you think a different way. You may have changed someone else's thinking because of what you have learned. You might change your own behavior. You might change the behavior of others. It might be a combination of all 4 of those things. That's what action is. It's not one thing. It's a change in thinking and or behavior. So what does this look like? This is just an example from my class. This is just very brief notes that I wrote down about each of my students about what they were doing. You're not going to get a lot of information from this, but you can see how different their ideas are. There's a couple of people who were fairly certain they wanted to join together with someone else because they had similar interests. And so when I see that happening, it's like, okay, this can work. And let's acknowledge the fact that one of your drivers is that social interaction and developing that relationship with that person. As much as it is developing those other skills like in the situation, running a business and photography and practicing some movement as well. So you can see just how different these things are. And when you go up into the classrooms, you'll see the same thing. Oh, why is it not doing anything? This is fun. Oh, there we go. Okay, so a little bit more information about that process. So we've got the planner. There is much conferencing. It's not a conference at the beginning, conference at the end. It's constant conferencing with us. So ongoing check-ins with any adults. Maybe it's you, maybe it's us, maybe it's experts, maybe it's other students in the school. Anyone can be checking in with the student and helping them on their journey. At certain time frames, we have given time frames for this to just help the students along a bit. We have pivot or persevere points. So we will say to the students, are you feeling this still? Is this still motivating you? Or are you feeling like you're hitting a whole lot of brick walls and your motivation is dying? Okay, maybe it's time to pivot rather than truck on this pathway and you're not really getting anywhere. Obviously, it's not our ideal that they would chop and change many times. That's not our ideal. That's not what we're going for. We're hoping that they really nail their own motivation. And then opportunities to share and celebrate. Big or small, authentic audiences in the school, outside the school. That's what we're going for.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about how this kind of connects to the PYP's version of what PYPX is. And I just want to reiterate that 2 years ago we did a business. And what we found out is that students kind of connected with the profit motivation and not really anything that they wanted to do themselves, anything that they were motivated by because of autonomy, mastery, or purpose. So we wanted to take that away a little bit last year. So we changed the idea to enterprise. And we said this is an enterprise, which this is a challenging project. But what students ended up doing is kind of falling back into the business ideas, and kids, again, went along with money motivation. And those kids who didn't ended up at markets where their product or their enterprise didn't really make any sense within that market. So we've kind of taken those frames away, and we backed up a little bit to think about what PYPX actually is supposed to be. And this is really the criteria for PYPX. So as Suzanne said earlier in this presentation, she said that PYPX is meant to be a culmination, a celebration of their journey through primary years. That's it. Lots of schools do it. They'll have a big pin-up board and they'll put all this stuff over it and everybody will kind of have the same thing. That's not so much a celebration of what they've done throughout their primary years. Everybody's primary journey has been different, and we want them to kind of experience even more through this process and then also reflect back on how they've changed throughout it. So what they're all doing currently now. So if you're wondering when PYPX starts, it already started, and then we'll just continue all the way through, pivoting or persevering whenever those points come up. While they're doing that, they're engaging in depth with a collaborative inquiry. They're all doing that right now. They've chosen something to inquire into, and they're doing it as in depth as their interest takes them, and if they choose to pivot, then they'll do that. The collaborative word there is, sometimes they work with partners. We found that students who have chosen to work on one single project with their partners have ended up hating their partners at the end of that partnership. Not really hating, but almost 100% last year, about 100% said, I would not work with that person again. So we're almost discouraging that a little bit because we want to lose the free rider thing, and we also want to make sure people are engaged in their own personal interests as well. But that doesn't mean that they can't be collaborative. There's all kinds of room for collaboration between themselves and experts, between themselves and other compatible projects that are going on. If somebody needs some photographs for their website, they might contact a photographer within our group. Okay? So there's lots of collaboration that's going to happen naturally, but not so much partnership, I don't think. Opportunity for independence and responsibility, that's what we're working super hard on in Studio 5. And we kind of need some help from you guys as well on the independence and the responsibility part. The independence part, of course, we want them to do this on their own as much as they can, but also the responsibility part is we're working really hard to hold them accountable for the things that they want to do and say they're going to do, and we expect that you guys kind of do the same thing when they come home. Ask them about what they're doing and don't let them off the hook when they said school was fine. Yeah? How'd it go today?
Boring.
It was boring. Right. Well, why was it boring? Get the answer. I don't know. That's not good enough. Don't let them off the hook for that kind of stuff. Because when they have to explain what they're doing, they'll do stuff. If they don't have to explain it, they might not. I don't know. So really check in with them and ask them questions. Don't push them too hard, but ask them. Ask them good questions. Not how was your day, yes or no. Not was it boring, yes or no. But what did you do? Can you show me something that you worked on? Because if you do that, then they will do stuff. And they will want to show it to you. And they'll be excited. And if you show enthusiasm for it too, then they'll have enthusiasm for it. Explore multiple perspectives, so they're going to see it from other people's point of views. If they want to make a change, they're going to have to look at it from different sides. Synthesize, apply, reflect. This is kind of the main point of all of PYPX, is to look back at all of the things that they've done so far and put it all together. When we stage it, last year we had a big celebration in the MPR, and we're going to do the same thing again this year. They'll have some kind of creative piece to help them explain who they've become as a person, as a learner. It's an authentic process for assessment. Again, to make it authentic, we want to make it as meaningful and relevant to them for assessment, for us to assess them, also for them to assess themselves as they've changed throughout this year's process, but also all of their years in the primary. To take action, of course, we want them to do something, do something, do something. Again, be asking your kid, what are you doing? And don't just let them say, I don't know, or nothing. And if they're saying nothing.
Or I'm researching.
Yeah, researching too. Researching is some kind of action, but again, that action goes a little bit too far, and too much research ends up resulting in kind of a loss of passion for whatever that thing is. Unite the school community. Again, you guys are going to be a big part of that, I hope. Some of you are really great at things. Some of you work for companies that are related to products that kids are developing. Some of you might know somebody who can help. So again, as you look around, don't just go talk to your student. Look around and see if anybody else is doing something that you might be an expert in or know an expert in.
Matt, can I add in on that?
Sure.
Just adding in on that, there are other students there whose parents couldn't make it today, and they've either called their parents, or Skyped their parents, or recorded a video. So it would be beneficial for you to have a wander and see those other kids who might be sat on their own.
And again, the last bit is this is their last year here. They're moving to another campus. There's going to be a different set of expectations on them. But at this time, we're working really hard at making them independent, critical thinkers, decision makers, so that they won't have any issues moving on to the next level. So I mentioned some things about how you can help your student. We want to move them from this tiny circle of their comfort zone to some amazing place over here. So it's okay for you to give them a gentle kick every once in a while to move them out of that comfort zone. Respect their ownership over their learning. This is, again, really important. We want to respect that their ideas are super important, more important than our ideas sometimes. Respect that. Listen to what they have to say. Offer suggestions, but don't tell them no. Don't tell them they're wrong.
Don't try and change their minds about things. Offer suggestions. If they want them, they'll take them. If they don't, they won't.
And again, ask, what are you doing? Not in a threatening way, like, what are you doing? But, hey, tell me about what happened at school today. Not was school good. Tell me about something that happened at school today. There's a massive difference in those two questions. One requires an answer, and the other one can be answered with a shoulder shrug. We don't want that second answer, right? Support them to make community connections. Again, I mentioned this, if you know somebody who's doing something like that, if you know somebody who's really good at that thing, you know somebody who would love to take part, mention it. Send an email to one of the teachers who would be involved. Talk to the student who might want to be connected. Help us out. Connect with everybody. We know some people, but you guys know a lot more. Help them take it public. This is important too. This is about community connections as well. Taking it public means you've done something awesome. Now show it to somebody. Sell it to somebody. Share it with somebody. Teach it to someone. That's taking it public. So if you know somehow that we can connect to other people, please help us out with that. Again, give them a little nudge every little once in a while. That's okay. You know, a lot of kids, they're 10 years old. They get a little bit complacent, I guess. And just asking them where they're going and what they're doing, what they plan on, offering suggestions and encouragement might be just enough to encourage them out of their comfort zone. And finally, come here sometimes, check in. And it's all about really showing your interest and that what they're doing is important to you.
Okay, so to respect the students who are waiting patiently for you, I will be as efficient as possible. When are these check-ins? Well, you can have conversations at home, over the dinner table, while you're cooking. So be it, in the car on the way to school. This was the first check-in. There'll be another one in March, dates to come, another one in April, dates to come. And then PYP staging will take place sometime during the last week of May or second to last week of May. We're gonna send this to you guys as well, so don't feel like you have to jot anything down. If you have questions about PYPX, how it connects to Studio 5, how it connects to what we're doing with the unit planners for students, you can head to this Padlet. There is a spot for all questions, any questions. Jot them down while you're thinking of them now, while you're with your child over there. We will get back to you on the Padlet as soon as the day has ended. Give us some time. We'll read through the questions and answer anything that we can for you.
This link is also up in the classroom, so
Yeah.
if you don't get it down now, it's okay. It's also in the classrooms.
So, what are you going to do now? You're going to head back to the classroom. You are going to find your child. They should have prepared all their materials. They're quite anxious and excited to share with you what it is that they have been working on. Their plans, their timelines, their documentation, their projects, whatever form they may take at. It's important to note that these are not final pieces, these are not final products, but it's the journey and the process that they have gone through and they want to share it with you. These questions are also up in the classroom, so feel free, rather than yes and no questions, ask them some of these and see what you get.
It's really important that this is a conversation, and we've hammered home that point to the students, that this is a conversation, it's not a presentation.
Yeah.
It's not one way, it's a conversation between the two of you, or three of you, however many people are here.
So we invite you to head back over to Studio 5 with us until about 3:05. Once you're done, 3 o'clock, 3:05.